Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the business meeting of the Cabarrus County Board of Education for December the 9th, 2013. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize Officer Keith Drake, who's providing our security. He's a DARE officer for Cabarrus County Schools and floats from various schools. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being here. Our colors tonight are being presented by the J.M. Robinson JROTC. Carrying the United States flag is Cadet First Lieutenant Quinn Heimler. Carrying the North Carolina flag is Cadet Second Lieutenant Matthew Crowder. Guarding tonight's colors are Cadet First Lieutenant Tyler Forget. Forget. And Cadet Technical Sergeant Annalisa Orafici. Sorry. Maybe I should have read that before we started going. Please join me in standing for the presentation of the colors.
Halt. Left. Haste. Reset. Others.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Care. Coach. Post. Right. Haste. Hold. Heart.
Okay, board members, our first order of business is to adopt the agenda. Before we do that, let's maybe another round of applause for Winkler Middle School. Great job that they did with the Star Spangled Banner. What a real treat to have them here. Okay, board members. And before we get started, Ms. Carpenter is on her way, so she should be here sometime. She's coming from Ohio, so just as a note. Let's adopt the agenda. So do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes, and we'll move on to recognitions, and we'll ask Ms. Ronnie Boone to come to the podium for our Impact Through Education Awards.
Good evening. Tonight we will recognize students and staff members for the Impact Through Education Awards to folks at Carl A. Furr Elementary School and J.N. Fries Magnet School. Before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsor for the Impact Through Education Awards, which is Concord Printing. So we want to extend our thanks, as always, to them for sponsoring these awards for us. We'll begin tonight with our honorees from Carl A. Furr Elementary School, and at this time I'd like to invite any members of that school's administrative team to please come forward to stand with their students and staff. Our first honoree from Carl A. Furr Elementary is Javier Pena. Would Javier and his family please come forward? They're not here yet, so we will move on and see if they make it in before we're done. Our next student honoree from Carl A. Furr is Darian Hernandez. Would Darian and her family come forward? They're not here either. Okay. It's probably the weather and traffic. We'll move on to our staff members at Furr. Ms. Karen Hagee. Is Ms. Hagee and her, are they here? Okay, great. Karen Hagee is married to Steve, and they have 2 children, Dane and Wesley. She is considered a master teacher by her colleagues and coworkers, and is well known for engaging students with a variety of differentiated learning practices that are suited to best meet their individual educational needs. Because Mrs. Hagee is a lifelong learner who's always looking for ways to expand her teaching expertise, she is paired with the other Furr Splash teacher for Spanish immersion. Ms. Hagee, we thank you for your commitment and dedication to meeting the needs of your students. We are pleased to present you with an Impact Through Education Award for Carl A. Furr Elementary School. Congratulations. Our next honoree from Carl A. Furr Elementary is Ms. Kelly Pompey. Would Ms. Pompey and her family please come forward? Kelly Pompey is married to Mark and has 1 daughter, Cheyenne. She has worked at Furr since its opening in 2006. Prior to that, she worked at Cox Mill Elementary. Mrs. Pompey is a compassionate and patient individual who effectively works with children of every age. She is a valuable asset to all students and makes a difference for the students at Furr on a daily basis. Thank you, Ms. Pompey, for all that you do each day for Furr Elementary School students. Congratulations on your selection as an Impact Through Education Award recipient. And since the students from Carl-A-Fur are not here yet, I would like to go ahead and let you learn a little bit more about them in reading their biographies that the school provided. The first honoree is Javier Pena. Javier is a fifth grader at Carl-A-Fur Elementary School and has been a Fur Falcon since he was in kindergarten. Every teacher he's ever had considers him to be a model student, hardworking, with excellent attendance and a positive attitude. Javier always does his best work so he can be successful. And we congratulate Javier on receiving the Impact Through Education Award for Carl-A-Fur Elementary School. Our second student honoree at Fur Elementary is Darian Hernandez. Darian is also a fifth grader at Carl-A-Fur, and she has attended Fur since she was in first grade. Her teachers describe her as responsible and honest, and a student who enjoys learning, qualities needed to be successful in school and beyond. She's an excellent role model for her peers, and we congratulate her on her selection as an Impact Through Education Award recipient. And I would ask that I will get these plaques to Mr. Roberts and make sure that he gets them to those students as well. So we will move on to our honorees from J.N. Freese Magnet School, and I'd like to invite any members of that school's administrative team to come forward at this time. Our first honoree from J.N. Freese is Nathan Surrey. Would Nathan and his family please come forward? Nathan is an amazing student in the IB program at J.N. Freese Magnet School. He is so loved by his teachers and his peers. He comes from a very loving and supportive family that goes out of their way to show appreciation and gratitude for the J.N. Freese Knights family. Many refer to Nathan as pure genius. In fact, one of his teachers describes him as an old professor in a young body. Another teacher says that Nathan consistently goes above and beyond. He has a kind heart and a mind that is constantly pursuing excellence. Nathan is a young man of excellence inside and outside of school. In school, he is a straight-A student that participates in the school's debate club. Outside of school, Nathan plays piano and tennis, gives his time to a nursing home, and engages in various physics experiments. In addition to his extracurricular activities, Nathan is an author of nonfiction and fiction literature, most notably his newsletter, which is titled The Emissary of Concord. Nathan's newsletter highlights how peace is incorporated within the Concord community. Nathan is particularly interested in becoming a physicist and hopes to one day attend college at Yale, Wake Forest, or perhaps even abroad. When asked what he loves most about the IB program and being a student at J.N. Freese, he says he loves the global aspect of IB, the freedom of creative thought, and the interdisciplinary aspect of learning. Congratulations, Nathan. You are an Impact Through Education Award winner for J.N. Freese Magnet School. Our next honoree from J.N. Freese is Asa Mintmeyer. Would Asa and his family please come forward? Asa is an outstanding student in the J.N. Freese STEM program. He is the type of student teachers love to have in class. He is well-spoken, hard-working, and a true leader within the school. One teacher says, "When I see Asa at work, he is the pure embodiment of the quest for knowledge." Another teacher describes him as an out-of-the-box thinker, fascinated with the why and the how. Asa is an impressive, well-rounded young man who most would describe as a creative genius. He constantly seeks opportunities to learn about all kinds of subjects and loves to spread his knowledge among others. His teachers compliment him all the time about how patient he is and how well he works with others. They say he is the epitome of a true STEM student. Asa works hard to pursue academic excellence and remains on the AB honor roll. In addition to his studies, Asa has taken on various projects within the school. Most notably, he started the compost project in the 6th grade, and it continues today. He participates in the Change the World Club because he believes in being of service to others. He has competed at the state level for science fairs and loves anything dealing with engineering or science. Asa hopes to one day attend colleges such as North Carolina State University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he could either explore his engineering side or his creative side. When asked about what he loves most about STEM and being a student at J.N. Freeze, he says he loves his teachers because he feels like they want to be here every day to help him be successful. He feels STEM is a family, and he absolutely loves project-based learning. Asa, congratulations. You are an Impact Through Education Award winner for J.N. Freeze Magnet School. Our next J.N. Freeze honoree is Ms. Erica Williard. Would Ms. Williard and her family please come forward? As a new technology facilitator to J.N. Freeze, Erica Williard has done an outstanding job. She's very supportive of teachers and helps them through their challenges with technology. She's made instructional involvement a priority for her as a facilitator and is always helping teachers to enhance classroom instruction. One teacher stated, "Erica is a blessing to new teachers. She showed me how to use the smartboard, how to create lessons, and how to use all kinds of special features. She even visited my classroom several times to follow up with me to make sure I was good to go." Another teacher stated, "Erica is more than a tech facilitator. She's extremely child-centered and always looking for ways to help students learn more effectively." Erica is a tremendous asset to the J.N. Freeze Magnet School family. She shows up for the school in many, many ways. Not only does she take care of the school's technology needs, but she attends PLC meetings, she leads professional development, she advises student clubs, she helps students to develop leadership skills, and she is a significant support to the administrative team. She always has a positive attitude and presence, and does whatever she can to make the day run a little smoother. Congratulations, Ms. Williard, and thank you for making an impact through education at J.N. Freeze. And our final honoree from J.N. Freeze Magnet School this evening is Ms. Sylvia Fuenmayor. Would Ms. Fuenmayor please come forward? And her family, I'm sorry. Sylvia is absolutely amazing. She has worked so hard to overcome the challenges of being new to the school while implementing the new Power School program. Sylvia always greets you with a warm smile, pleasant, and inviting smile. She's always helpful no matter what you need her to do, and she's always willing to go above and beyond what you ask of her. Whether it's a special report that a teacher needs created or a special task that an administrator needs her to do, Sylvia works hard to get it done. One teacher stated, "I don't know what we would do without her." Another teacher stated, "Sylvia is the most nurturing, kind, and patient person. She's so compassionate and positive and will find a way to come through with whatever we need." Sylvia is definitely all of those things to the Jan Fries family and more. She plays a significant role in the work that administrators do and is always willing to help in any way that she can. Thank you, Sylvia, for making an impact through education at Jan Fries Magnet School.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boone. And now, Dr. Shepard and I have a very special presentation for the board. Okay. Let's see, Mr. Vaughn and Mr. Hilbish, would you like to stand forward, please? Stand.
How you doing?
Thank you. A few months ago, the North Carolina School Board Association announced that it was accepting nominations for the NCSBA Business and Nonprofit Honor Roll. Cabarrus County Schools did not hesitate to nominate our friends at Hilbish Ford for this recognition. Hilbish Ford has been the sponsor of the Hilbish Ford Teacher of the Month program since its inception in the spring of 2011. Since that time, Hilbish has honored 27, soon to be 29, deserving Cabarrus County Schools teachers for their dedication and commitment to their students. Their support for the work that our teachers do each day is definitely laudable. We are grateful for their continued support and are pleased to recognize them with this certificate. Thank you, Tim, and thank you very much, Mr. Hilbish. And with that, we will lead into our next round of Teacher of the Month awards. And welcome Ms. Auger and Tim Vaughn back.
Good evening. Tonight, we will present our Hilbish Ford Teachers of the Month for November and December. Mr. Vaughn, we're pleased to have you back with us this evening, and we are also thrilled to welcome Mr. Buddy Hilbish to tonight's meeting. The support Hilbish Ford provides to our teachers and our school system is immeasurable. We thank you for your continued support. Now, let's meet tonight's honorees. For November, the Cabarrus County Schools Hilbish Ford Teacher of the Month for November is Todd Hartzell. Mr. Hartzell, would you and your family and any members of your school's administrative team please come forward? Mr. Hartzell is a masonry teacher at Central Cabarrus High School. He was nominated for this award by a parent. In the nomination, the parent wrote, "Mr. Hartzell has taught both of my older sons all 4 years of their high school careers. Thanks to Mr. Hartzell's teaching and guidance, my oldest won the North Carolina State competition twice, as well as the national competition, and went on to the World Skills competition in Germany this past July." The parent continued, "Both have learned a lifelong skill from Mr. Hartzell. He has a way of teaching students while respecting them as young adults. He's more than a teacher, he is a true mentor." Mr. Hartzell, please accept our congratulations and our thanks for all that you do each day to teach and mentor your students. We're honored to have you as a member of the Cabarrus County Schools family.
Ms. Auger, before you go on, I wanted to just interject briefly. Normally at the North Carolina School Board Association, the highlight of the whole week is when we walk through the exhibit hall and there's Cabarrus County School students laying brick with mortar, and they let us lay brick and try to lay brick, maybe I should say, Todd and his some of his crew, and that we've had more fun, and they didn't make the trip this year, and they were missed. We all were walking through the hallway looking for them, and we didn't see, so hopefully we'll see you there next year.
The Cabarrus County Schools Hilbish Ford Teacher of the Month for December is Jana Snuggs. Ms. Snuggs, would you and your family and any members of your school's administrative team please come forward? Jana Snuggs is a 5th grade teacher at R. Brown McAllister Elementary School. She was nominated for this award by a parent who wrote in the nomination, "I want to nominate Ms. Snuggs for the way she is bringing out the best in our son. He has struggled in school before, and she has taken him from being unmotivated in school and not believing in himself to getting A's and B's instead of C's and D's he used to bring home before. She sees his strengths and she encourages him, and because of that, he is thriving." The parent added, "I think Ms. Snuggs is the kind of teacher a person will look back and think of as one of the most important people in their lives." Ms. Snuggs, thank you for striving to bring out the best in your students, for encouraging them and motivating them. You make us proud. Congratulations on being named the Hilbish Ford Teacher of the Month for December.
Okay, thank you. Again, to Buddy Hilbish and Tim Vaughn, thank you very much for being here and supporting our teachers. And we will keep Ms. Auger at the podium and for our Cabarrus County Schools Assistant Principal of the Year Award.
Yes. I would like to invite Mary Newsom, her husband, and Dr. Davis, Mary's principal, to come to the front, please. We celebrate tonight the beginning of a new tradition, our first Cabarrus County Schools Assistant Principal of the Year. The selection of finalists was through peer nominations, with the district team making the final selection. Therefore, the selection of Mary Newsom indicates that she has earned broad respect throughout the district for her leadership skills. After completing her studies as a North Carolina teaching fellow, Mary began her teaching career with us in 5th grade at Bethel Elementary School, where she was the Bethel First-Year Teacher of the Year. Later in her career, she was selected as a principal fellow and served her internship at Cox Mill High School during 2009. Since 2010, Mary's been an assistant principal at Weinkauf Elementary School. Mary has an infectious personality, spreading enthusiasm for her students and teachers with those around her. She works in a tireless, thorough, and precise manner to support others. Among Mary's unique achievements is her origination of the first Girls on the Run program in Cabarrus County Schools. She also serves on the Teacher Leader Cohort Committee. Mary loves students in the truest sense of the word, and she is always willing to do what it takes to make them successful. Please join me in congratulating Mary Newsom as our first Cabarrus County Schools Assistant Principal of the Year.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will recognize at the podium Donna Smith with Cabarrus County Schools and Londa Strong with the Cabarrus County Active Living and Parks Department.
And I'd like at the beginning to ask Lenora and her family to come forward, and the administrative staff from Weddington Hills, even former administrative staff, please come on in. As they're coming forward, I'd like for you to take a look at the screen because this will help describe what we're getting ready to talk about. One cannot say health and physical education in Cabarrus County Schools without including the name of Lenora Barron. Lenora went to Weddington Hills Elementary when the school opened in August of 1996. That was 17 years ago. And during these 17 years, her focus has been on the children and how she could develop within them the importance of being healthy and physically active. Londa Strong has recognized this talent for a long time, and anytime you speak with Londa, she has to talk about Lenora. So we have a special honor tonight that Londa will share.
The North Carolina Recreation and Park Association recognizes individuals that have made significant contributions in enhancing the quality of life. These awards are presented annually at our state conference. This year, the Active Living and Parks Department staff submitted an application nominating Lenora Barron for the Special Citation Award for her contributions in the development of the school park at Weddington Hills Elementary School. More specifically, the paved walking trail, the development of a paved nature trail that boasts a butterfly garden, wetlands, bird feeder area, camera for the birds, and deer watching, nature education signs, the installation of a shelter, composting area, plant identification, reintroduction of native plants to the campus. I think you get the idea. On and on and on. And an age-appropriate playground. We had to throw that in there. Through the Active Living and Parks Department Matching Incentive Grant Program, Lenora has been awarded $90,000 $550, half of which came from the county, half of which came from PTO. However, Weddington Hills raised that money, but it was not school money. And I know that in addition to that, she's received several local, state, and federal grants, so I don't know what the total is that's been spent out there, but I know that there's at least $90,550. The Special Citation Award is presented annually to someone who has demonstrated an outstanding interest in the field of recreation and parks, or has made a contribution to the advancement of the recreation and parks profession. Evidenced by the project itself, the fact that students worked on the nature trails reward, and there's probably a lot of teachers and principals that would like to know how you do that. And students come back to visit and check on the project, as well as the letters supporting nominating Mrs. Barron demonstrates how deserving she is. I don't know the total number of nominations for the Special Citation Award this year, but normally we have anywhere from 75 to 150 nominations from all across the state. There were 2 awarded this year, so we were very excited when we found out that Lenora was one of them. The letters were submitted along with the nomination from the superintendent, Board of Commissioner Chair, Mrs. Janet Smith, myself, and several parents. The theme through all of the letters was the same: great role model, great mentor, dedicated, and most importantly, and this comment was in almost every letter, it's like we've heard Mrs. Barron say, it's all about the kids. That sums up pretty much why I think she won the award, and on behalf of the North Carolina Recreation and Park Association, we present Lenora with the 2013 Special Citation Award.
As they take their picture, we'd like tonight to say we salute Lenora and her contributions to the physical well-being of students, as well as your receiving of this award. And we know you will be the first to say you did not do this alone, but tonight we salute you. Congratulations.
Okay, I will have to say one quick thing that I toured Weddington Hills with a current county commissioner sometime back, and not only did we hear all of that, we left with fresh produce in our hands from the garden, and I thought, well, I can't get any better than that. What a day. Our next item, before we get to our next item for business, we have a current commissioner with us tonight. I'd like to recognize Mr. Steve Morris. Steve, Commissioner Morris, thank you for being here. We appreciate your service and welcome to the Ed Center. Board members, we're at item number 5, approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes? And if I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The motion passes, and we'll go on to Section 6, reports. Board chair comments. Well, I've already had, I guess I felt free to just go ahead and interject previously, but now officially in my comment section, I'd like to wish Concord High School luck Friday night with their state championship football game. We hope they bring a championship back to Cabarrus County. That would be very exciting, and wish them the best of luck. The other comment I wanted to make was, I got an email this week from somebody that asked me if our meetings were open to the public. So I would just like to unequivocally state for anybody viewing that yes, indeed, our meetings are open. You're welcome to come. We welcome parents, students, business leaders, everybody in our community, we'd love to have you. The address of the Ed Center's at the website. Feel free to look it up, and we would love to have you at our open meetings. And with that, Dr. Shepard, do you have your comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few announcements I'd like to make this evening. First, I want to begin tonight by expressing my thanks to all of our employees for their generosity to United Way. We completed our annual employee giving campaign last month. Our employees donated more than $26,000 to our Cabarrus County United Way and other United Way offices across our region. These donations will go a long way to support the work of member agencies, which provide vital services to our community. So thank you for your caring nature about your neighbors in need. Also, with colder temperatures comes the threat of inclement weather in our area, so it's important that we make sure our parents and students are familiar with our inclement weather policies and procedures. And we have that information posted on our district website at www.cabarrus.k12.nc.us. Also, I'm pleased to announce that we will unveil the next billboard in our Clear Choice branding campaign series next week. And if you'll look at the monitors, you'll see those there in front of you. And then in early January, we'll begin utilizing the second billboard location at the roundabout on Cabarrus Avenue. So I want to thank Ronnie Boone and her office for the good work in our Clear Choice branding campaign. We're approaching the application period for our magnet programs. Applications will be available in January. Cabarrus County Schools offers a variety of magnet programs to meet the diverse needs and interests of our students. So please visit the magnet program section of our website to learn more about our magnet schools, the application process, and the open house events planned at each of our magnet sites. Also, during the holiday season, Cabarrus County Schools choral students will be performing on the steps of the historic courthouse during Cabarrus Arts Council events. The Mount Pleasant High School Choir performed this past Friday, and this coming Saturday, the Hickory Ridge High School Choir will perform, and on December 17th, the Concord Middle School Chorus will perform. We're proud to have our students represent our school system and put their talents on display, and we'd like to thank our friends at the Arts Council for giving them this opportunity. Also, I want to remind all of our students that the deadline to submit entries for our annual Holiday E-Card Design Contest is this Wednesday at 5 o'clock. All entries should be mailed or delivered to this office at 4401 Old Airport Road. A winner will be selected from each school level, and the winning designs will be featured as my official holiday greeting to business and community leaders, as well as to other superintendents across our state. We'll invite the winners to attend our January board meeting for recognition. You can find details in an entry form on the Cabarrus County Schools website. And finally, I'd like to extend a holiday greeting to all of our students, staff, and families. I hope you enjoy the time away from school and work and the time together with your loved ones. We look forward to seeing everyone back refreshed and ready to go for the second half of the year in January. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. And now we will move on to Section 7, guest speakers. Speakers may call the board clerk on the Friday before a business meeting to have 3 minutes to address the board. And we currently, we did not get a request this week, so we have no speakers. So we will move on to Section 8, the approval of the consent agenda. And board members, these are the items we discussed last week, and as a board put on our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second for the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. And we will move on to our action items. And these were items that we discussed last week that we had some either further clarification or questions or more comments that we wanted to make. And we will move right into 9.1, the salary and supplement increase request resolution that we would like to present to our Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners. And Dr. Shepard, would you like to recap where we are with that?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few changes that we made to the resolution as a result of your meeting last week, a few date changes, and there's a red line copy in your information tonight. The amount of increase that we've asked for is a 1.5% increase, and if there are any questions that you or the board has, I'll be glad to answer them or invite our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Kelly Klutz, to answer.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shepard. We will let the board have comments or make any last comments that they would like to make, and we will start with Dr. Phillips.
Well, first of all, with the rest of the board's approval, I'd like to recuse myself from voting on this because my wife would be impacted by number 3 that's listed here, since she is an employee. But otherwise, I'm certainly in favor with the spirit of this. It seems only fair. And I'm particularly pleased to see that we will give an additional boost to those employees who are below the minimum that's paid by our competitors in areas such as child nutrition and transportation custodial work. They are sort of the offensive linemen of school employees. Nobody really notices them unless they do something wrong. But if they don't show up for work, nothing's going to get done.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Mr. Harrison.
I'll be happy to make the sacrifice and vote twice, once for myself and Mr. Phillips, if he will allow and if the board will consent to that as well. This is needed. This is urgently needed. It's a matter of fairness. It is a matter of what the county needs to do so that our staff is justly compensated. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Shue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a lot more to say. I think I said a lot last week whenever we talked about this. I think it's well-deserved, and it's high time that we stand up, as I said before, stand up for our teachers. They stand up for us every day. You know, the teachers do wonderful work, the classrooms. Everything is just good about what we're doing, and we want to keep it that way. I don't want to see us lose any more teachers because we don't pay them. And so I'm glad to see us do this. The only question that I have, and I just thought about this a little while ago, and maybe Ms. Klutz might can help, I'm not sure. Does there need to be a date, an effective date? I mean, obviously, you know, we're asking the commissioners to do this, and I'm assuming that they'll expedite their attention to this matter. And but, I mean, obviously, we're asking for a 1.5% increase, but are we asking for that as soon as the commissioners can do that, or August of 2014, or when school starts back? We're asking for it now. Does that need to be a part of the resolution?
I think that maybe we need to defer to our attorney and Ms. Klutz, or one or both.
Obviously, nothing can happen until the commissioners approve it, and then it might even be up to them. I'm sure it would be, as to when it would be effective. But you can fill us in if you will.
I believe if the board would like it to be effective immediately, it could add that language in there. If the board would like to include a later effective date, it could also include that in there. So we're happy to make whatever revisions you would like.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Well, under that advisement, then I would like to see us maybe put another whereas that this be effective immediately upon approval of the commissioners.
Okay, we will take that under advisement. I would like to ask one question before we do that. Do the numbers reflect that, or do the numbers reflect something different than that? The numbers reflect that, then I'm fine with doing it that way as well. So that we'll see what everybody else has to say. Mr. Shoemaker. Thank you, Mr. Shue. Mr. Shoemaker.
Well, now that we're into discussing the nuts and bolts, when you say the numbers reflect it immediately, because this is a full year's increase, so how does it prorate for this year and then go effective, or how are you conceptually?
It's an annual amount, so effective immediately would allow us enough dollars to take care of starting effective immediately. We need the annual amount because it's a recurring expense, so you would have to have that in the budget for the following year.
All right, but this would be a prorated raise starting from here on out, and then it would
We could prorate it,
dovetail
or
into next year.
we could give it to them for the entire year, considering it's a supplemental amount, and that would be my recommendation. That's not something we talked about, but since it's supplemental, we could do the whole year if we were funded for the whole year. We could certainly do that.
What you're suggesting is if the commissioners did approve it, then we could give it to our teachers as a a bonus type check this year, and then next year it would be folded into their normal pay.
We
That
could.
way they would get the full benefit of the entire year.
Yes, we could.
Okay.
They're paid teachers receive their supplement in November and June. So normally we would just split that in half, and so we could put the difference all in their June supplement rather than splitting it, because of course they've already been paid their new November supplement. But we could certainly find a way to get them the money if we had the funds.
Thank you. Now, one thing, I appreciate the work that your staff did on this, and I don't know if we had this about the cost of living increasing 9.7% since 2008, but, that means that our teachers have literally are now 10% below what they should have been making or could have been making back in 2008. And as all of us know, things have not been going down in price. Fuel has been fluctuating. On top of that, there is another whereas that was added into this, and that was that the total cost of living and increases for the county employees, not including the merits, are in excess of 12% over the same time period. And our teachers have had a 1.2% plus a $33 supplemental increase since 2008. So, there's a tremendous difference in the way employees in this county are being paid. And I just wanted to bring the public's eye to these types of statistics so that they'll understand why we're asking for this. And it's not like our teachers are not putting forth, and they're acting like true professionals. And despite all of the activity that went on this summer, I can tell you right now, the excitement in the classroom, and these children are being taught every day, and the teachers are not allowing their feelings about being underpaid and not being recognized monetarily for what they're doing. They're not allowing that to drift into the classroom. Our teachers are teaching our children, and they're very receptive to what they have to say. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker, and we welcome Ms. Carpenter. Glad you were able to make it through the rough weather, so we're glad you're here safely.
I have been through snow, I have been through rain, I have been through fog, but I'm here. I know the mail must go through. I've been through it all today, but left out from Ohio, and I am here. But as you all know, this is near and dear. This was the reason that I was very adamant about the budget this year and did not vote for our budget because of these increases, and so I'm very adamant about wanting this. The question that I have with doing this, Kelly, where does this put us now on supplements? Where do we stand if this would go through ranking-wise? Where would that put us with our supplements? Is this going to put us at across the state? Where is this going to put us with our supplements? I know before we were kind of midway with supplements. Were we not within the state? Where is this going to put us? Is this going to put us a lot higher? I mean, do you have any idea where it's going to put us now? If we put this in place, are we going to be 76? Are we going to be, where are we going to be?
I have an idea, but I didn't research this before I came tonight, so hang in here with me just a little bit, okay? So the salary study said for us to be comparative to our region with comparable systems, we needed an increase on average of our salary supplement for teachers of $672, okay? So this is going, a 1.5% increase is not that much. It's, I believe the 1% was 400, so it's, $550 or something like that. So it's not as much as we need to be. So we'll still be lower than what we should be with the region and the surrounding areas, but we'll be so much closer. We'll be so much more competitive, and we'll be able to retain teachers better than we have been before. But we'll still have some work to do.
But it's going to be putting us
much closer.
Put us closer to that, but you can't tell us right now what that number is at this point.
I'll get that for you, but not exactly, no.
Okay, with that. And that was one of my big questions. And again, I am very happy because, again, we were looking at being inequitable because, with our budget, what we did have, even though it was a small amount, the teachers had gotten that small supplement where some of our uncertified or non-certified had gotten nothing at all. And that was just so, it just was not right. And that was, I had a real problem with that. And these are the people that are on the front lines every day. And our teachers, as I mentioned at the very last meeting, they have just gone so beyond doing what they could. And a study had just came out last week, I think, that Mr. Walters had, or someone had gave it to us, talking about how many good teachers we are losing because they can't they just can't survive on what they are making. And we're losing so many of our good teachers. So I'm very much in support of doing this so we can do what we need to do. And so I think it is something we've got to do so we can keep these teachers. So this is something that has to be done. And thank you so much for all your help in getting this together for us.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Mr. Walter.
Yeah, I'm also okay with the changes that are made here. And as Ms. Carpenter was referring to, the study that the state had done recently about the teachers leaving the classroom, there were 242 Cabarrus County teachers that have left in the past year, 13% of our teaching staff, which I think is pretty high. So anything we can do, if it's a supplement increase, I think that's something that we as a board ought to do, or at least make that recommendation. I'm still not quite clear how it's going to work out. I mean, if I'm a teacher, how does that affect me? I think we need to be a little clear on exactly what we're trying to do. But I'm for it. So.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Walter. Carolyn, you got another comment?
For the record, so we can formally have it, I would vote that we recuse Mr. Jeff down there. I will do it formally that we would recuse him from the vote. I would make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And before we get to that, and I meant to ask Mark this week, my wife works for the school system as well. She does not get a supplement. So to me, I think I'm outside the bounds of this. So, okay, I just forgot to formally ask. So I have a motion and a second that we recuse Dr. Phillips from our vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. So we are on record, and Dr. Phillips is on record as not voting for this resolution. So with that, and thank you for that, Ms. Carpenter. With that, I would just like to make one quick comment, and that is, I just don't want it to seem like we just kind of up in the mid, all of a sudden, hey, let's just give everybody a raise or what, The fact is, we did discuss this at budget. We now have a clearer picture. School finance is extraordinarily complicated, and it is mind-boggling, actually. What Kelly has to do to keep up with is phenomenal. But we now have a clearer picture of some dollars that we had that we had our eye on, or she had her eye on to do this back in June, July, August, and now it has become clear that we can afford to do this. So that's why it's happening now. And so, with that, board members, I'd like a motion that the board adopt a resolution to request the Board of Commissioners to provide $2,935,500 in operating funds so that all school employees can receive the equivalent of a 1.5% increase in salary through an adjustment to salary supplement or both, effective immediately.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Can I ask? I have one question. In this, the administration has basically recommended 3 actions. Did we approve the $246,000 action last week?
It does not require board approval.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah,
Right.
we're covered. All three actions are covered with this motion.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0 with Dr. Phillips' abstention. Okay, well done, board members, and we will move on to 9.2, resolution to the Board of Commissioners for a bond referendum for schools, and I would like to say that that probably should read for a potential bond referendum for schools. And before we start our discussion, I would like to just reiterate something that we did talk about last week, and that is the commissioners cannot consider doing a bond if we don't formally request that it be done. So our job is to advocate for schools and tell them what we need, and their job is to manage the county's finances, which includes schools and other items and projects. So to give them a tool in their tool belt to be able to handle the needs and what we think our needs are in generating a list, that's the reason we're considering this resolution, to ask them to consider putting a bond referendum on the ballot. So that, with that said, we had a lot of discussion last week. We changed some numbers around. We arrived at a number of $60 million. I would like to let the board members know that in our chair-vice chair meeting this week, the commissioners indicated, along with the county manager and the finance director, that they would rather not have a line item of general repairs on a potential bond referendum. And we can discuss this at a further date. We did talk about our needs. We did talk about our repair needs, our deferred maintenance, and coming up with a plan to be able to address those needs, but address them outside of the bond, which, in my opinion, I welcome that, because our needs they're here and they're now, and I'd just soon let's get going and try to figure out how we can do them and not have some of it tied up in a bond. So I think that makes sense to me. So I'm going to make a recommendation here that we adjust what's written on your sheet, and then we will go there. We'll have comments, and hopefully we will work our way to something equitable for the entire board. So I tell you what, before I do that, can I get a general nod of the heads? Are we okay with item number 1, Mount Pleasant Middle School? We still have the issue of, and let's go ahead and talk about it, of what we talked about last week, whether we were going to put in the resolution the site specific or leave it generic. Rob Walter is our liaison to the town council of Mount Pleasant, so he wanted the chance to address that.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable at this point recommending it being at the same site. It might end up that way, but this board has not heard from the town. This board has not heard from the community on exactly where this site has been. I've been approached by the town. They want to talk to us, at least get their input, and I would like to hear that input prior to us making a decision on exactly where that location would be. And it very well may be the same location. There's issues about athletic fields. There's issues about road closures. There's several different issues that they may want to discuss with us, and I think we ought to at least listen to that before we make our decision.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walter. I know that previous boards to ours have had that discussion. There's I've got a detailed, it's not a plan, it's just a schematic type of design for that site. I guess our intention in conversation seems to be that we would like to do that. I think certainly it does make sense and behoove us to get some input, although generally speaking, I'm sure they don't all agree on exactly what they want either. So we'll have to decide whether we want that language on there or not. But as far as the list, are we okay with having Mount Pleasant Middle on the list? Nod of the heads. Okay, so we got that, and a replacement in the Royal Oaks vicinity as our second item. Okay, fantastic. Now here's where we're going to get to my recommendation to the board. If we strike the general repairs but keep the dollar amount, and we do two things, and we add, because we had some discussion last week about the Glenn Center. So if we add the Glenn Center, and then if we remember when we first started talking about a potential bond, one of the things that the administration asked us to look at was some engineering money and startup money for the future replacement of Central Cabarrus High School. We did have some conversation about that either here and in some other meetings, that it may not be time to start over or start from scratch, but the needs, the physical needs are there at the high school that is approaching 50. Am I correct in that? Was it built in 1967? Did I have that? Okay. We're approaching 50 years old. So we'll swerve back to remembering that that was part of our original conversation. If we take the 8, the number listed for Coulter and Webb, and the 4.5 that we've now scrapped, and we just call it $12,500,000, and we write out to the side of that Coulter and Webb / Glenn Center / Central Cabarrus High School. And let me back up for a second. We did have a conversation about the Glenn Center last week. I think we can do multiple things there. We can talk about a future arts magnet, which we've talked about for quite some time. We've talked about surge space, which is going to be, if we get a plan together on how to handle our smaller elementary schools inside the city of Concord, we're going to need to have a plan together of where to put students while we're doing renovation. If it comes later on, if we actually rebuild on a site or something to that nature. So I think the Glenn Center serves a couple different purposes, plus there's community support already for us doing some things at that particular site. And then again, the not necessarily the addition, but the reintroduction of going backwards on a previous list of adding Central Cabarrus High School. So again, the dollar amount hasn't changed. We're still at 60. And the project list would be Mount Pleasant Middle, a replacement for Royal Oaks, and then Coulter and Webb, Glenn Center, and Central Cabarrus for the $12,500,000. Okay. Well, we'll get Sarah to help us with the wording. But with that, let's have our conversation and see if we can't zero in on how we want to handle the bond. And we will start with Dr. Phillips.
Thank you. Well, the first thing I want to say is I know that there's at least one member of the Board of Commissioners who doesn't think that we should borrow money to build schools. Has shown that other entities, including the federal government, have got themselves in almost a death spiral by borrowing money. I want to point out that debt is like science. It's neither good nor bad. It depends on how it's used, for what purpose. And there's a vast difference between borrowing money to pay for everyday expenses of government, such as the fuel and the bullets to fight a war overseas, or prescription drugs for our seniors, and getting a loan to acquire an asset which will stay in the county and provide value to the citizens of the county for many, many years. A similar example would be a person who has got an opportunity to have a job, but in order to get to that job, they need a car. Now, if they don't borrow the money to get the car, then they'll never be able to have the job. And so there are some cases where it just makes business sense to borrow money that you know you can pay back in the future, and you will get a greater return on that asset which you've acquired earlier because you got a loan. So what I'm trying to point out here is that going and getting a loan is not inherently a bad thing. Sometimes it is a very wise business decision, and I think that this is a clear case of one of those wise decisions. The children are here. We need to take care of them. We need to have schools that can provide them a safe learning environment. And if we wait many, many years to acquire that money rather than borrowing it, then we'll not have these wonderful assets that we could have to be teaching our children. So having said that, let me get to the specifics of your question about what do we do in terms of the $4.5 million that we had originally said for general repairs. As I've been thinking about it, I think that at this point, since there is no clear plan, what I would like to see is a money that could be allocated for an architectural study for both the renovation and rehabilitation of the Glenn Center, for an arts magnet, an assessment of Central Cabarrus High School and the needs, and come up with the costs of what the needs would be for making that school fit for another 40 years of service. And I think that if we do that, we also need to do the same thing for Northwest Cabarrus, because I believe that it too is about 50 years old, and there's parts of it that are definitely going to need some love and care, as Lynn Shue had said before about Central Cabarrus. So that would be my suggestion. And I don't know, I would look to Mr. Whitkey as to how much money would be needed to hire an architectural firm or an engineering firm to go in and do a thorough assessment of those three buildings and come up with both plans and cost estimates for rehabilitating those three.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Do you want to take a stab at a ballpark? Or I tell you, why don't you think about that? We'll just kind of continue the conversation and we'll circle back to it. Mr. Harrison.
I think the idea of a bond referendum makes very good business sense for this reason. And I'm not sure if this can be proven, but if you own a house and if your house is next to a well-constructed school, I suspect you can ask for this much in the sale or the price or the value of the house if you are on the market to sell or buy. And I suspect that also has an impact on the tax value of the house and therefore the tax revenues to the county. I would think that the soundness and the good construction of a school would have a direct bearing on many facets of county financing. And if we can improve the conditions of some of these schools, build new ones, then the county revenues ought to go up, I would think, partly because of that economic development that we are contributing to in a way. It just makes good sense to me to maintain schools and to build good ones that enhance and are valuable assets to a community and therefore to the neighborhoods around there. Again, I don't know of any proof or evidence or facts or figures that can be pulled for that kind of things, but to me it should make some sense that we would be improving the tax revenues of the county by having better, nicer schools in some situations, at least in the immediate vicinities of those schools and the property values thereof. So I'm in agreement generally with the proposals here to restate these the referendum itself, or the proposed referendum itself, but we again are asking for $60 million. We just need to have a very clear kind of understanding of how we would, in a perfect world, approach that $60 million should it be approved by the commissioners and then approved by the bond referendum voters in May. So we should at least come up with a very clear roadmap plan, a allocation of $60 million for the various items that we have definite needs for. And with that, I'll pass to Mr. Shue.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Shue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to concur with what Mr. Phillips said in his assessment of loans versus paying cash. You know, there are very few people that go out and just pay cash for automobiles this day, and if Mr. Hilbish was still here, he would probably second that thought. You know, financing is a very vital part of our economy today, and there's nothing wrong with financing a school. There's nothing wrong with leasing a school. People lease houses and cars and all of this kind of stuff all the time, so there's nothing wrong with what we're asking to do here. And you know, in reference to the plan that's been thrown out to the commissioners there might be a time in the future, I don't know how long it'll be, but based on what I've heard, you know, it will be years and years and years and many years before a plan like that could even come to work. Now, if we were on an even playing field, we had all the schools that we needed. For whatever reason, our capacities were holding the same. We didn't have, but instead of 137 mobile units, we maybe had 30 or 40, which would still be too many. And all of our roofs were fixed, and all of the maintenance items were taken care of. And sure, we could probably get by with 12 or 13, 14 million dollars a year, and maybe even put some beautification programs into place at some of the schools and different things. But the unfortunate thing is, it's just like you and me. We're getting older every day. Whether we face it or not, we're getting older every day. Our buildings are getting older every day, and they're going to require maintenance ongoing. The new buildings that we consider new, as I heard mentioned tonight, Weddington Hills was built in 1996. It don't seem like it's been that many years, but it has. And that's becoming now one of our older schools when it really was just a new school. And so when you think about that, and all, money has to be set aside. And Mr. Chairman, on your recommendation, I feel like that the $60 million mark is right on. That's where we need to be to accomplish some of these goals that we're wanting to do. I have no problem with as far as the Royal Oaks, because it's one of our older elementary schools, and we all know as board members, because of the parents attending meetings, us going to their school, taking tours, we know that school has just about run its course as far as an elementary school. And I know Dr. Shepard has ideas about doing some repurposing for that, which what we've talked about will work just fine and fit into place. So I have no problem with Royal Oaks, have no problem with Coulter and Webb. But now, and the Glenn Center, I really, and I can throw in Central Cabarrus right along with the Glenn Center. The Glenn Center, we do have a lot of community interest, particularly the alumni from the old Concord High School that have expressed interest. The president of the Cabarrus Education Foundation, Ms. Minot, they have expressed interest that they would like to do fundraising to help us in our efforts to use the Glenn Center in a more efficient way than it's being used now. And so I can see setting aside maybe $1 million for the Glenn Center to get the ball rolling, that kind of thing. And Central Cabarrus, there's a lot of things that need to be done at the school. We had all this list of athletics that they wanted and needed in some cases. But I think with the turf that we just approved and the commissioners approved that's going to help the PTO or the boosters have more money to do more things with athletics. So to make a long story short, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to see us spend $1 million or anywhere near $1 million on trying to figure out what we're going to do with Central when we know we've got $180 million worth of maintenance needs that have been continually deferred. Why would we do that? Central Cabarrus has got another 15 or 20 good years in it. We could spend some money on it, but I think that would be money that we would need to spend at some time in the future. Maybe if there's another bond referendum sometime in the next 4 or 5 years, that could be a part of that bond referendum, because we'll be getting nearer at that time to look at replacing the school or spending significant money on the school. And as all of you know, that's the school that I graduated from, and it's dear to my heart. It's a wonderful school. It's got wonderful leadership, and but there's many, many more years. It's not ready to be put on the porch yet in some rocking chair somewhere, and because it's 50 years old. I see a lot of 80, 85-year-old people running around here that are very productive. Mr. Hilbish, he wouldn't mind me saying it, he's up in his late 80s, and he's still getting around just as good as new. And Central Cabarrus is still a good school. It needs a little work, but I don't want to spend $1 million on that school as far as trying to figure out what we're going to do with it. But anyway, I'm okay with everything. I do think, though, Mr. Chair, that we need to take the amounts off on the items that we have listed here, because just for example, and I don't really know how this will work, Mr. Whitkey will probably have to tell me how this will work at some point in the future, but we've designated $26 million for Mount Pleasant replacement just by chance. If we designate and we focus on $26 million and it comes in, demolition cost was higher, it costed more to do this than we expected, and it comes in at 26.5 or 27 million, then guess what? We're going to be going back to the commissioners again saying, hey, guess what, boys? We didn't quite estimate enough to take care of this project. And so I'd like to leave that open until we have a more, between us and the commissioners, we can discuss what we think it's going to be. But when it comes down to it, because what we're after is $60 million. And it might be that the elementary school will be less than 21.5. And if that's the case, we got monies there that we were planning on using for the elementary school. But yet, I don't think we need to pin it down and focus so much on the amount. And I apologize for taking this much time. This is all I'm going to have to say about it. And so we want to make sure we got this right. And I'm thinking that whenever the commissioners look at it, they're not just going to stamp this and say, okay. They're going to want to know specifics. And we're not going to be able to give them specifics until Mr. Whitkey has had time or till he gets some kind of a direction from somebody to say, what's it going to cost us to do a Mount Pleasant Middle School replacement? And the same thing, if we get the other resolution passed, which we're asking, it'll be on later on in the agenda. And if they'll approve that, then we'll sort of have some kind of an idea what this other replacement school is going to be as well, because we'll be able to get started on it. And then when we get a little bit further down the road, then we'll be able to have a little better assessment as to how much it's going to cost us. And but anyway, that's where I'm at, Mr. Chair. I hope you got record of all that. But that was a lot to say, but I had to get that off my chest. And just one more real quick thing on the Mount Pleasant Middle School. Mr. Berg, I did speak with him earlier, and his architectural firm was the one that did the schematic for that particular site, and it was to run parallel with Main Street, and the town of Mount Pleasant then said they would close North Drive there at Main Street. And then in my recent conversations with a couple of those people down there, they said, and I don't know why they hadn't done this, I guess because they hadn't got, nobody has asked them to go ahead and do it, but they said they would send us a resolution stating that they wanted that school to be on the site there, the current site. And so with you being our liaison, I'd ask Mr. Walters that you talk with one of those city councilmen, town councilmen down there, and get them on the ball if that's what they want to do, because we need to be a little bit more specific when it comes time to better informing the commissioners what we want to do, because otherwise we're going to have to buy some land, which is going to be more money. Okay? All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shue. Your comments are greatly appreciated, so don't apologize for taking some time. And yes, I don't know if I got all of it, but I got a good chunk of it. But before we go on, just to clarify, what my recommendation wasn't necessarily to spend $1 million and try to see what we need there. It was to split up the 12.5 at some future date as Mr. Whitkey and his crew and Dave figure out what the needs of those three schools to try to make and have an impact. We know Central's got issues now, ADA parking. I mean, not even the bathroom stuff. In the $180 million, there are items on there from Central Cabarrus. So that's what I'm talking about. That we give the tender love and care that has been brought up for that to do that, not set aside money to try to figure out, well, we're going to rebuild. The rest of the board may think something different, but I wanted to make sure that you understood that's where I was coming from for that last that 12.5 was kind of those three together, trying to figure out what we have the needs at all three, not necessarily just to start over. Okay, Mr. Shoemaker.
Well, this is really an exciting time for our county to be going down this path, to be looking at what we can do to better the future for our children. In the near future, there's some things that we do need, and this this bond won't take care of those. We do need a facility study at Central Cabarrus High School, but that's not something that we should wait till the bond comes up to do. We should go ahead and be more proactive and talk with our commissioners about what can we do to get that moving forward. We also need a facility study for the entire district because there's a number of aging schools that we need to take care of in the near future and in the subsequent future, so we can begin to line up behind which schools need some attention and marry up the $180 million that we know and maintenance needs are out there, plus whatever could be coming up in the near future. The Glenn study, according to Cabarrus Education Foundation, they're trying to raise money right now, and there's a possibility that they could get a grant that would allow them to go ahead and do the front work on the Glenn Center as to how much the renovation would cost, not only for the auditorium, but it should have been for the entire school. We need, as a Board of Education, and Dr. Shepard and his staff need to provide a functional document to say, here's what we want this school to look like, because part of the vision was to have this as a surge capacity of somewhere around 800 to 1,000 students. Then that helps us when we go to Coltrane Webb and some of the other schools. So it may be that in the pecking order that we can look at this Glenn Center as this surge capacity can help the other schools in Concord that are aging and that definitely need some improvements in their infrastructure, but it's really hard to do it when you don't have a place to relocate the children. The design of Mount Pleasant Middle School, I believe, is something that we could do ahead of time. We've got a study that's been done. We need the support of the Mount Pleasant community to say this is what they want. And then we have to look at the constructability issues. How can you construct a school while you still have students there? So all of that would need to be laid out before the bond ever came down. If we got the bond, then that would be a thing I would think we would want to get done right after the bond is passed before we ever start collecting money, because it'll be a year before we ever get the money from the bond. So in looking at our statements, I was thinking that we need several more whereas statements in this document. And one of them is the whereas the Glenn Center is a facility that could be renovated to allow surge capacity to assist in future development of our aging schools. And of course we have a potential vision for it later on as an art school, but before we ever get there, we need to take care of what's the business that we need to take care of now, which is trying to house our elementary students and make sure that they are in good facilities. The second whereas statement that I believe needs to be added, and that is that Central Cabarrus High School is in need of renovation and capital improvements. And I believe that if we have a study, then that would help us direct in a stepwise format where you begin your renovation and improvement of Central Cabarrus. You don't have to do it all, but if you do a facility study, it can mark out the path that you want to follow. And you add that to the Royal Oaks Elementary School and Coltrane Webb Elementary School that are badly deteriorating, and I think that we have a package now as to how we can move the students around while we take these different projects on. Obviously, we're not going to be able to renovate all of Coltrane Webb, but you have $12,500,000, which our chair has suggested that we put in a kind of a broad statement, and I believe if we create a broad statement for it, a statement that would read something like capital improvements and renovations related to Coltrane Webb, Glenn Center, and Central Cabarrus High School, and then put the 12.5 to related to that, rather than specifically tying us into different amounts, because we don't know how the money's going to float. On top of that, there may be an issue, as Mr. Shue just alluded to, is building costs are going up. You know, we have yet to see the impact of the inflation that's been going on over the past 5 years, but that inflation is eventually going to rear itself, and materials costs are going to start going up. And when those costs go up, then the estimates that we've thrown down here will probably not be as valid as they are. So the 12.5 could also be a little bit of a buffer, because we would have to apportion according to how the estimates come in for the different projects. I believe that that is a sane way of doing this project and doing this bond. I'm in full support of it, and when we look at the direction that our community is heading, you know, we're guaranteed that we're going to have residential development for the next 25 years. As long as there's population increases and nothing stops the possibility of growth, as long as the Charlotte region continues to grow at the rate that it's growing, we're going to see the spillover effect of that. Now, if business comes here, and an allure to business is to make sure that our school system becomes the light on the hill, and that we are the clear choice, and that businesses want to come here because we do have a really good school system. Part of that having a really good school system is that the children aren't in aging facilities that are so decrepit that we can't do anything with them. So, or that businesses would be embarrassed to have their employees put their children in one of our schools. So I believe that this is the beginning of a sane course for us to go on, and a good way for us to go forward. So I'll end that, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. And so were you taking notes on a couple of those whereases? And we'll come back to that. So, okay.
I was, but if the board decides they want to formally amend to include Mr. Shoemaker's whereases, I might need the vice chair to walk through those one more time with me if he could.
We will do that. Thank you, Sarah. Mrs. Carpenter.
Well, first of all, I want to say I respect every one of the members, what they have to say, but one of the things, as being in accounting all my life, in the accounting world, one of the things, services, it's never a good idea to finance services, and especially for anywhere from 15 to 20 years. And basically, when you're looking at doing a service that's going to, say, look at building or something like that, that's basically a service. And that's going to fall basically in the same category as your general repairs. And so I can't agree with saying, oh, let's go hire someone to assess these schools, because that is a service. And so I think it will fall into that same category. I agree, we need to do that, but to say, let's put that on a bond, I don't think that'll fly. I really don't, because what you're wanting to put on a bond is something that's tangible, is a building, is an item. That's what you want to see on a bond, something you can feel, you can touch. That is not really something that you can feel or you can touch. And so I could not agree with saying, okay, let's go hire somebody to do this study that will tell us what we need to do. That needs to be done, I agree. I'm not saying that it doesn't be, but to put it on a bond, I don't think that's where it needs to be. I agree with the Coltrane Web. I agree that we need to have that done. That's because we had this room almost full with parents saying, yeah, we want that. These things need to be done. And again, don't throw things at me, but I'm going to bring it up again. It's a physical thing. It's something that's going to enhance what we already have, and that's the planetarium. That is a physical thing. We've got a STEM program already in place at Central Cabarrus. It is a physical thing. We've got schools that already have. We've got Hickory Ridge with the culinary department. We've got Concord that's got a fire academy. We've got the Northwest that's got their biotech. All these schools have got something that they can say, I've got, that can bring in the clear choice. It's got something that can bring it in. What does Central Cabarrus have that has to do with education of our children? We've got a STEM program, and this would be something that would do this. We're talking $375,000. This is something you can feel, you can touch, that can bring it in. This is something and all we're doing is asking the people to vote on something. This is a physical, this is something you can touch. This is going to bring something that they can physically say that this is something that I can touch. that I can see. This will give that school something that they can say, I have. And that's what I'm trying to do. That will bring that part of the area to there. Now, we've mentioned the Glenn Center. With that, if we're wanting to add seats, say add seats to that. Put the rest of the amount of that $4,500. What will $3 million do to add seats to that? Put that there. Again, the remainder amount, the $60 million, I say okay. But again, for services, I can't wrap my hands around that or my head around that, because I feel like we're financing services, and I don't think the general public want to finance services. That's like saying I want to finance a light bulb or I want to finance an oil change, and I don't think the general public want to finance things like that. And that's what that would be. We need to do those studies, but I think that's something that we need to either go separately and say, hey, this is something we need to do, and ask for that separately. And I think it's something that we do need to do. We need to do that. But I don't think it needs to be in a bond referendum.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn, for those comments. And Mr. Walter.
Yeah, I see we have two issues. We've got the growth issue where we've got students coming into our community and we've got to provide seats for them. And I think just starting after our closed session, we hopefully will have an opportunity to share that need and address that issue. This issue here is to replace the older schools. We've got numerous schools that have issues that just need to be fixed. And I think you've got 2 or 3 on here. And having never gone through a bond before, do you have to be more specific for the bondholders to want to know what their money's going towards? You've got, and most of these schools, I guess, are in the central area of the county. But you still have McAllister and Wolf Meadow that aren't addressed, and those 2 schools have significant needs as well. So I'm not sure how you hit all that. I know we have a request for $60 million here, and that's probably going to go with Kannapolis has a request for an intermediate school. You've got Rowan Community College that's looking for some projects as well. So would all that go into a single bond referendum?
Well, it's my understanding that the commissioners can take, if they get multiple, and Sarah may have to correct me, if they get multiple resolutions from multiple bodies, they can meld it all into one bond if they want to. They can send them out separately if they want to. That's up to the Board of Commissioners. Do you want to comment on that?
No, that is correct. The commissioners will be able to sort of construct the bond in whatever way they see fit.
So we're sharing what our needs are, our top priority needs are.
Yeah, and I want to go back to your question about specificity, and that's kind of that's a fine line to walk, because as Ms. Carpenter has pointed out, if you want support in the community, they need to know what you're doing for them and give them a reason to come out and support it. I talked to our attorney this afternoon because I wanted to find out, well, the last time this happened, and that was well before I ever even dreamed of running for the school board, so I don't even know if I was paying attention at that point in time. What was that, 2004? This board, or not this board, but the Cabarrus County School Board passed a resolution that was very specific and had a list of projects on it. When the bond went on the ballot, it had a dollar amount and said schools. So even if we list specific projects, they're not bound by that to have our projects listed on what they put on the ballot. So, it's kind of a fine line there between trying to lay out sort of what our vision and plan is to try to handle various schools in different areas, and it may look a little bit different when it actually goes, and that's totally up to them to do that. And I wanted to answer your question, but you feel free to go.
I mean, again, our needs are $200 million, or if not more than that. So this is just a drop in the bucket at that point, but it is needed. It is needed to make some differences, so I am supportive of it. So.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Walter. So here's what I'm hearing, and I agree with Ms. Carpenter that services we don't want in the bond. I do agree that some of that is needed. We have talked about in our subcommittee about doing a full-blown facilities needs assessment, which incidentally Union County did some time ago. And that's, but it's expensive. I mean, I'll tell you up front, it's expensive, but that may be something that we need to address and look at. So I think for the purposes of, from what I'm hearing, Dr. Phillips mentioned something at Northwest. That probably falls more into the service thing that Carolyn's talking about, and we may need to, while I don't disagree with that facility, I think maybe we need to just keep that outside of the what we're talking about here for the bond. If so, it sounds to me like everybody we're okay with the dollar amount. I want to go back to Mr. Shue on including Central. If we lump Central with Culture and Webb and the Glenn Center, kind of in some of the verbiage that Mr. Shoemaker said, are you comfortable that that's broad enough to find and let Mr. Whitkey define items that, or projects, large projects, and again, not just normal maintenance, because the county has said they don't want that in the bond, but looking at this is a big renovation of something there at the site, but not necessarily an architectural type of study. But you mentioned a specific that you wanted to not do that, but I want to kind of circle back to you, make sure you're okay with where I'm thinking we're headed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with what Carolyn said. We don't need to finance services, and that's the same thing that I believe we heard someone else say a little bit earlier. I think it was Jeff. You don't want to finance things that you're going to consume. It's just like financing reoccurring expenses. You don't want to do that. But I believe money does need to be spent on Central, as I said. But you're not going to like me for this, Ms. Carpenter, and I'm sorry. But I cannot support the planetarium at this time, because that is a want versus a need. I mean, we need to get these items on our deferred maintenance list. Those are real needs. And, we're talking about people that's got mold in their classrooms, roofs leaking. You can touch the rain in some classes, I'm sure. You can reach out and touch, and you can feel that rain coming through that wall and through that ceiling. Those are real needs. It would be a wonderful thing to have the planetarium. We just missed, I think it was last year, NASA had a grant. I think you was telling me about it, matter of fact, in NASA, but we missed it just by a little bit there, maybe getting some money for the planetarium. And I think that's where we need to focus on, is a grant for that. I don't think that we need to spend any money on it with all these other pressing needs. And I don't really believe we maybe have one commissioner that would support that, and he has expressed interest in it. He's just like myself, an alumni of Central. I'd love to see it done, and I know he would love to see it done, but it's just not a pressing need. It's a want at this point, and that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shue. And I tell you what, we will divert that. I think the planetarium is we've seen it in the Friday report. The commissioners asked us about it. I think that's a conversation we probably need to have and either pony up or put it to bed. But I think that's outside of the bond of what we're talking about here. But I think we'll give Ms. Carpenter another opportunity maybe to sell us on it, and then we'll. Yeah, I agree. But you did answer your own question. You asked, well, what do they have? Well, and then you said, well, they've got STEM. So they do have the STEM program. But it would be an incredibly neat thing to partner and have at that school function again. But for the purposes of this discussion, I think the planetarium is just sort of a side note. What we would be saying here, and again, I think we're going to go back and wordsmith it a little bit with Mr. Shoemaker and Sarah. But what we're going to, what I'm hearing, and I didn't hear anything to the contrary of the view that we can have capital improvements to Central, the Glenn Center, and Culture and Webb inside what our bond resolution is. And then we've got two other items that we're going to have to nail down. One is whether we include or not include the location in the resolution for Mount Pleasant, and whether we include or not include these dollar amounts. Mr. Shue has said that he made the suggestion to not. So let's do the dollar amounts first. Let's get an opinion from our attorney on whether we should have that or not. As far as if we're just asking for 60 million and listing these, should we have the 26 listed next to the middle school and the 12.5 listed to the 3? Is it advantageous one way or the other?
Surprising for me to say, but arguments can be made both ways as to the benefit of having the dollar amount specified or not specified. I think because we seem to be kind of fluctuating in terms of what may go in each bucket, and there are some concerns about what costs could be in the future and real estate and so forth. Perhaps because of that, it would make more sense at this time to, in the final resolution, not include the specific breakdown of the dollar amounts. Rather, it'll be reflected in the minutes from these meetings that we've talked about and kind of have ballpark ideas, but perhaps in the final resolution, to simply include the total lump sum for $60 million, to the extent you all seem to be now shifting the buckets of items around a little bit.
Okay, so board members, we have a legal opinion that we certainly legally can go either way. Her opinion is that we not include the individual line items. So here's what we're going to do, try to somewhat quickly. We'll start with Rob. You want...
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sorry to throw a monkey wrench in it, but as the rest of you were talking, I was going back through my notes on previous meetings, and one other item that struck a chord, I think, with most of us was when there was a presentation about the number of computers per student. It was actually the other way around, the number of students per computer at our schools, and there was a vast discrepancy across the county. And I believe that we did ask for more money for computers in our latest budget and from the commissioners, and it was not approved. So one thing I'd like to at least throw out there is the possibility of also including acquisition of additional personal computers within that $12.5 million piece, because then that way, there will be something in there for some of these other schools that are not being touched, other than Mount Pleasant, Royal Oaks, Coltrane Webb, and Central.
Mr. Phillips, let me, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, in the vice chair meeting, Jeff, that we just had recently, it was our understanding in talking with the chair and the vice chair of the commission that they surely didn't want to finance computers for 20 years. So that would be something that they would need to pay cash for at some point. And like you said, we did make I believe it was a $4 million request for technology, and we ended up getting, I believe, $1 million. Is that right, Ms. Probst? Yes. For technology. We asked for $4 million. They give us $1 million. And but that would have been cash instead of no financing on that. So that would be out on that part.
Okay. And in that same meeting, we talked about the testing and computer and devices and the deficit that we're facing with the mandate of that. So they're well aware of, I'm sure they're well aware of a lot of things and a lot of needs, but we did specifically talk about the needs of technology and computers. Mr. Shoemaker, you've got a comment?
Yeah, well, and I was recently at a technology meeting, and we had some discussions, and if you remember back in the spring, the Chrome came back and wasn't able to support state testing. Subsequently, the state changed the app. So now the application the Chrome will support the new state application, so then that opens up a much cheaper alternative for us, and we would still do a blended process, blended hardware acquisition as we've been doing, but now it gives us an opportunity to add more bang for our buck by going through the Chrome route. So I think we've got a good path. We'll just have to see how the future wrangles out on the money, but I believe Dr. Probst and her team have got some good things lined up for us and have done a lot of testing on things that I think will help us out in the technology world.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. Okay, we're going to do rapid fire. You yay or nay on the numbers listed on the resolution?
Now, what are you including in number 3 then?
Well, number 3, you put Coltrane Webb, comma, Glenn Center, comma, Central Cabarrus High School. And then it would be 12,500,000 if we leave the numbers on. But we're getting ready to find out what the temperature is of whether we want the numbers on or not. So, does that make, before we move on, does that make sense? Okay, Rob?
Yeah, I don't think anything prevents us from supplementing the resolution here with those numbers, but I'm okay with leaving them off the resolution.
You're okay with leaving them off, okay? Carolyn?
My only thing, is that going to do anything for Coltrane Webb, though?
Key up.